it's Chris from Icethetics. I hope you've had a chance to watch episode 1 of Identity with Matt McElroy. If you haven't had a chance to watch it yet, I recommend you go watch that first before you watch this video, because it's a continuation of that interview. By the way, if you're enjoying these videos, I want to remind you to hit the thumbs up button, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. It's easy for you, and it really helps me out in terms of continuing to create new content. Now, the day we recorded that interview, Matt and I talked for almost 2 hours. Obviously a lot more than I could fit into one episode. Now, of course, a lot of good stuff had to get cut out, but I wanted to give you a chance to see it in this episode of Identity Extras. In the icebreaker, I asked Matt about what makes a great logo. Here's the long version of his answer.
You know, obviously the Hartford Whalers. I think everybody's going to say that. But I honestly, I think it could be the Dodgers or the Yankees. You know, you would never see something like that today. I don't know if that's because people expect more but if I put out a block L with an A, you know, interlocked, it would not get the same lasting impression that I think the Dodgers had. And, you know, it is synonymous with baseball in LA. And, you know, even if you're not a baseball fan, you know that hat is a Dodgers hat. And I think at the end of the day, that's what a logo or an identity is for.
So what do you think gave those logos that staying power? Why do you think they've been around so long?
I think it might just be the culture or lack thereof of design at that point. You know, like if you look at a lot of the original 6 logos to kind of keep it hockey centric, a lot of those were designed by the wife of the owner who was sewing the sweaters. You know, they weren't like designed by Fan Brands or Brandios or some powerhouse design firm. It was just like what they could do. So there's sort of a level of simplicity there that I know I've gotten away from, and I think a lot of people in my peer group have gotten away from, because we can do these amazing things with computers. But in the long run, like, it's those more, I don't want to say simple design, because it's like the Red Wings logo is very intricately done, but you know, the idea maybe is simpler than what we do now.
Do you think that simplicity, does it still figure into when you're designing something new? Are you still starting from that place and then sort of adding more, or is it just, or you're starting from a bigger place and you never kind of get back to that simplicity?
It is so subjective to the designer, you know, like that's a hard question to not answer from my personal bias, because I think personally, like I know you have like watched the development of my work, like I try really hard to use a lot of those big, bold, dark areas and sort of that traditional styling. And I think that it's hard for me to do that. Like my inclination is to get all of those details and more of an illustration kind of style than a logo style. And that's something I have to be really cognizant of, is trying to be like, okay, what is this going to look like at an inch by an inch or on a Twitter profile? Like, you need to scale it back. And I think just, you know, looking at the wall behind you, if you look at the Kraken logo, that's a perfect modern execution of a simple traditional logo that still uses modern design motifs and thickness of lines and kind of stuff like that, while still doing the simple, bold, scalable kind of thing, versus the Wild Wing, which is super 90s, kind of this intricate illustration kind of look at the 90s in sports design. It just embodies that sort of like, well, we can do all this stuff on the computer, so we should, kind of like well, you never stop to ask, you know, should we do this? You just thought we can, you know.
In the showcase, Matt talked about his most memorable concepts and one he's forgotten, the first one he ever sent me. All right, obviously you've had a ton of concepts posted to Icethetics over the years. You've been one of the go-to designers for so long. I'm curious if are there any concepts in particular that stand out in your memory?
Actually, I think kind of this same era of designs, the ones that really stand out to me, it was like a twofer, Nashville and Phoenix concept. And I sort of oversimplified both of the logos of Nashville and Phoenix, and It wasn't like a particularly good concept or good idea, but it was the first thing I did in Illustrator, I think. And like the first time I thought through like, oh, I could change this existing thing and rebrand it, to use that term super loosely, to fit what I'm doing. And that was sort of like a spot where I think exponential growth started happening for me, because it like accessed a whole set of tools that I hadn't had. You know, previously I was just like laying striping into flat templates, but I'm pretty sure this was like the first Reebok Edge 3D template that was like based off of the photo of Sidney Crosby. And, you know, I did some perspective and the stripes were warped. And again, none of it is particularly well executed or exceptional work, but I really feel like that was like an eye-opening kind of experience for me.
All right, now, having seen that one, I want to take you back even earlier, because the first one you sent to me was actually this ducks one.
Oh, man.
So again, it was really just recoloring some things, it looks like, but that's at the same time, I think there was an idea there of kind of merging different elements of the ducks branding. Yeah,
you know, I think that if I could separate this from me, you know, and say like, oh, I saw this a couple weeks apart on Icethetics, I'd be like, oh, like I can see what this kid is trying to do, you know, like they are taking old elements and incorporating their current, you know, style motifs into it. But it's funny, I hate these Dallas jerseys that I mocked it up on. My high school hockey team wore those, and I've never been a fan. So I think it's funny that I would use that, and I have no recollection of that concept at all.
We also talked about some of the other work Matt has done in the AHL with the Thunderbirds and Silver Knights. Now, you've also designed a few specialty jerseys for the T-Birds. You want to talk about some of those? And was this really the start of your professional career at this point?
100% the start of my professional career. You know, I was lucky enough that they kept coming back to me, and we started not doing very many compared to some of the AHL teams, you know, only 3 or 4 a year. We really wanted to put some equity behind the logo and, you know, the Thunderbirds brand before we started doing all this wild stuff. But, you know, I think the first year we did a Hockey Fights Cancer, or a Pink in the Ring. It was Pink in the Ring the first year, like a throwback to the Springfield Indians, and one other one that is slipping my mind right now. But, you know, that was a great experience for me too, because when we designed the Thunderbirds jerseys, like because of the tight turnaround, it had to be a templated look, which is why they have that Sens alternate jersey template, which is really popular in the AHL. I think at one point there was like 5 teams that all wore the same base template and just colored them in different ways. But, you know, it was great for me to sort of show more of my ability. You know, obviously I think of myself as a logo designer first, but I got my start by doing jersey designs, you know, with just straight concepts. So that was also really fun for me. And, you know, when I think of myself as like an agency, like I think of myself as a brand person. So to me, the jerseys and uniforms are a big part of that. So it was great to kind of get to do that. And I think something that I really offered the Thunderbirds that nobody else does is, because I created the logo, like I maybe see it in a way that other people don't. And I like to think I try and find ways to incorporate elements into the jersey that are from the logo in maybe subtle ways, whether that's the 2 yellow stripes and a red stripe or something subtle like that maybe somebody else wouldn't pick up on. So the inaugural season logo for the Silver Knights is out there. One of my buddies texted me, and Justin Cox, another longtime Icethetics contributor, actually,
yep.
Texted me and he goes, "Hey, did you design this?" And I was like, yeah, like, why do you think that? And he's like, oh, it uses line weights that you like, and it just feels of your style. And I was like, man, am I that predictable that, you know, you can tell that this what is supposed to be mass-produced, branded kind of element comes for me. And that was kind of cool, even though it was like, oh, well, it wasn't supposed to look like I did it. It was supposed to look like the Golden Knights did it, but still cool.
We'll wrap up this episode with a look at Matt's proudest moment since joining the Vegas Golden Knights.
One of the cooler things I've gotten to do with the Knights is I got to design our Dia. I designed a lot of our specialty jerseys last year, but one that really stands out to me is our Dia de Muertos jersey, which is a Hispanic kind of Mexican holiday, which was super cool for me. My family is Hispanic, but we're Cuban, so I don't necessarily celebrate Dia, but it was cool to kind of lean into my Hispanic heritage and pull hockey, which I love, and put those all together. And the design is very Sugar Skull inspired, and it was super cool to see something that I really felt like I designed out on the ice. The other big one that I did was our Nevada Day jersey, which is sort of just a reworking of the Nevada state flag. So that was cool, but like this was the first time I felt like I designed it, you know, like you can see my style, I think, like we talked about earlier in the Dia de Muertos jerseys. And, you know, my girlfriend and dad came and I art directed the whole thing. So everything from in-game to social to billboards on the strip were all things that I had came up with and sort of led the charge on. So it was just a really cool experience to sort of be put in the driver's seat and call the shots and sort of show that I could lead at the NHL level. So that was something that really stands out to me as like a key experience from the Knights.
And thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want me to keep making them, the like and subscribe buttons really do go a long way. That's all for now. See you next time.